On this topic, we have Yi Chung, the partner of AC Ventures, joining me on the line. Firstly, Yi Chung, how is AI being integrated into the workforce, and what roles are most affected by this technology?
Sure, thank you, Nabila. As a quick sense, I think first and foremost, AI is not exactly a new thing. I think AI has been around for almost a deeper part of a century, but over the last couple of years, that's really accelerated across the board. As a whole, I think from an adoption standpoint, we're still really at the early innings of how AI can be adopted in the workforce and the workplace. In terms of what we're really seeing, in terms of immediate value add, those functions that we see in terms of, or the areas that we see the most immediate impact will really be in the functions of similar to sales, marketing, software engineering, as well as like customer operations. In terms of development, we continue to see those developments grow and innovate in those spaces. Are we there yet? I think the short answer is no, but we hope to see us arriving at those points relatively soon.
But what measures are being taken to ensure that the adoption of new technologies such as AI doesn't actually compromise data security at the same time?
Sure. I think like this is really a deeper topic and a topic on its own with regards to data integrity, regulations, compliance. These are areas that are currently being developed as we speak. And to be honest, I think like it won't be for another couple of years before we see standardized regulation and compliance across the board. A couple of factors that are really affecting this. I think number one, just the breakneck speed at which AI is developing means that regulation and compliance is really trying to keep up with this pace. I think that's number one. I think number two is that we're really going through an unprecedented time with regards to like, I guess, global developments. For example, with the geopolitical tensions, we're starting to see new regulations and laws come into place with regards to financial transaction data, for example, or the domicile or sovereignty of data. For today, most data centers, for example, serve data across regions and on a global level. Will this change as data becomes increasingly scrutinized and more important? Probably, I think is the answer, although we wait to see how that plays out.
I want to understand a lot better on how the impacts can impact the financial sector. So what is the projected impact of automation on job displacement in financial services sector? And how are financial institutions planning to create new roles that aligns with emerging technologies?
Sure. So with regards to your first question with as to how are jobs really affected, I think first and foremost, let's break down the jobs into two kinds of jobs. Jobs that are probably lower down the spectrum with regards to repetition, automation, and so on and so forth. And then jobs that are typically, let's measure it along like productivity or higher cognitive skills. If we were to just categorize jobs or work or basically jobs into these two categories, I think as a general rule, jobs that are quote unquote of lower value or of higher repetition would fall in demand just because like from a technology standpoint, that could start being automated over time. Now, will those jobs be completely eliminated? I think the short answer is probably not. But in terms of like those quote unquote jobs or tasks being allocated by an agent, for example, I think that will increase over time. On the other hand, I think jobs with high cognitive abilities, critical thinking, EQ, and so on and so forth, I think that tends to then rise in demand just as a consequence. If we then start to think of like agents or AI agents as like as counterparts as opposed to replacements, you then need much more of those individuals to then operate those agents, train those agents, and ensure that the productivity of such agents continue to operate seamlessly across the board. So that would be my quick sense, given the overall general view with regards to how jobs be affected especially more so in the financial industry. So if I were to give examples, I would be thinking about the most impactful areas in terms of immediacy, such as sales, customer service, customer operations, and so on and so forth. Those would be the most immediate areas of impact that I would start to focus on. So that would be the first port of call. With regards to the second question, Nabila, if we start thinking about jobs from, I guess, an area perspective, what can firms really do to adopt this quicker or accelerate this process? We're, again, as I said earlier, we're already at the early innings of this entire, I guess, movement or revolution, so to speak. what firms really ought to be doing is really start by identifying where their core skill sets are at the moment and what they need to really compensate for or build upon in order to catch up. Really, numbers that are being projected at the moment are growth rates as a subject to AI or technology between numbers as small as 1% to 3%. The follow-up question really is, how do you accelerate beyond those average numbers and rise beyond that curve? I think that's really the deeper topic here.
And I understand that transitioning towards a new thing can be overwhelming at times. So how are workforce changes being managed to ensure compliance with evolving financial regulations, especially concerning AI and data usage, and what strategies are in place to actually train employees on new regulatory requirements that comes with technological changes?
Sure. I think the short answer to your question is slow and steady. I think at this stage, I think firstly, as the AI revolution or the technology advancements continue to progress, I think firms are still, corporates especially, even individuals, are still really playing catch up with regards to where this goes. I think at the breakneck speed that we're seeing with new models being developed every 6 months or so, everyone's really struggling to keep up with regards to where this really goes. Do we end up with general AI, or do we end up with like certain progresses that may occur in the next couple of years, or will it take another 10, 20 years? Those questions still stand to be answered. Yet, with regards to that, I think compliance or regulation still play a relatively catch-up role in that regard. And what that really means is that until we can achieve some form of standardized framework of sorts at not just at a national level, but at a global level, which we've yet to reach, it's highly likely that it will continue to be a very dynamic environment. I think from the perspective of a firm or corporate, what do we do in that regard? I think first and foremost, I think number one is information, just keeping up with trends and understanding what's going on from either a regulation compliance standpoint, but also from a use case and productivity standpoint. I think at this stage, if I were to recommend, I would recommend firms or corporates to really focus on like, number one, potential use cases, but number two, how do you execute or enable the workforce to execute those use cases? I think that would really be my first part of call, because from a compliance standpoint, again, those frameworks have yet to be developed. Now, should a corporate start to develop frameworks even prior to frameworks being developed at a national or global level? Probably. I think we should start thinking or looking down that path. But the truth is, until those standards are really fixed, they're really moving goalposts at this stage.
Yi Chung, last question, quick one. We have about 2 minutes left. What's your outlook on the AI adoption this year, and also what's your outlook for next year and years to come?
I think the short answer is excited and paying close attention. We've taken huge strides with regards to AI. I think one thing that is particularly interesting to me is that AI is really a concept that started nearly over 100 years ago. When Alan Turing developed his famous Turing test, this was around like the mid of the 20th century. And despite that history, that relatively long history, I think we've seen only like we've seen huge steps being taken from an advancement standpoint over the last couple of years, really because we started seeing, I guess, AI agents or robots start to emulate, I guess, the human nature from an NLP perspective, from basically a natural language perspective. So this is an extremely exciting and interesting time to effectively, quote unquote, be alive. Over the next couple of years, over the next 12 months even, I think what I'm really paying attention to is how more natural that can get. And we can really see those developments from the perspective of where ChatGPT is building, Anthropic, Llama, and so on and so forth. I think those advancements have been extremely fast, extremely accelerated. And I think as we start to see the form factor of those interactions change from pure text to voice, or even movements to your phone from a small LLM perspective, I think like those use cases will only continue to expand and grow. So with regards to what I'm paying attention to at this stage is really where are those form factors going to be? How can we best position the firm or the corporate or even the economy along those lines? And last but not least, and probably the far most important point is, how do we create a more workforce-ready environment? How do we ensure that the workforce is ready to take on these new advancements and really implement them? Because ultimately, execution will be the pinnacle of that.